Hello, James. You don't know me, but I know you. I've been following you for a while. Not in real life, I have better things to do than that. But I've followed your career. I've seen a lot of your writing. I've seen a lot of your work. I'm not a fan. But I like to study lower forms of life. You can learn a lot about what makes you human by doing that. And about what happens to people when they forget their humanity. It would be generous to say that you've forgotten your humanity. More likely, you never really valued it. As I say, lower forms of life. But I've been following you for a while. You see, I used to work at a bookshop, James. And I remember coming across a book that you wrote. Like a lot of your output, it was derivative. You were ripping off someone else's idea, trying to be a me too business. That's what they call it when you have a company that does the same thing as another company but can't really distinguish itself. And that's what you did. You've never really distinguished yourself as much as Little John or Little or Hopkins or any of your peers. But you did something that lower forms of life often do. You found a niche. You stuck to it. And your niche, when you started out, that was iconoclasm, wasn't it? It was easy for you to pose as an iconoclast then, James, because at that time, the people whose politics you opposed were in power. So you could pretend to be an iconoclast. A lot of you did, back then. You flirted with celebrating terrorism. You flirt with that still. I guess you need to do something to get the blood pumping. In those days, it was easier for people like you to do it, because you could genuinely pose as rebels and not defenders of the status quo. No, don't move. No one's coming. No one's coming. It's just you and me. You should be thankful I did work in a bookshop, because God knows nobody bought your book. They bought the book you were ripping off, Is It Just Me, or Is Everything Shit? Which was an alphabetical glossary of all the ways in which Britain in those days, 2008, 2009, the late period of the first decade of this century, all the ways in which it sucked. But you see, that book had two things that the rip-off that you and some of your friends wrote just didn't have. One, it was coming from a place of genuine moral anger with the situation. Something you could fake, but never quite get right. You have no moral core, James. We both know that. We both know what you are. So you can never really ape that moral opprobrium. You tried. But the hate always came through. And the other thing it had going for it, of course, was that it was actually funny and your book wasn't. But I do remember looking through it idly. I'd seen your name in a few places, and I wondered what you thought was so important that you had to commit it to book form. I remember one particular entry in it. It was an entry about someone who preceded your favourite leader of the Conservative Party, Edward Heath. Now, we know a lot more about Mr. Heath now, just as we know a lot more about the Conservative Party. We know about Heath's predilections he shared with a lot of people in your party. It's almost like a Tory disease. Thatcher, spending all those Christmases with Jimmy Savile, warming herself by the fire as he told another tale of his exploits at Stoke Mandeville Hospital. And then Theresa, those files she lost. You know, I'll give her this. She got rid of them. She must have done. I mean, let's face it. If she hadn't, some of the rabid types that you support would have towed the line if she brought them into one of her meetings. Never said anything, but the file was on the table. That's how I'd do it. I'd keep it. Well, that's not quite how I'd do it. I'd go to the press. I'd go to the police. I'd tell them. You were a journalist then, or you were pretending to be one, and you were pretending to be an iconoclast as well, and maybe you knew about what Heath had done. Maybe you didn't. The brave thing to do, the morally correct thing, would have been to come out about it, to tell the truth. But you had that greasy pole to climb, didn't you? You had that niche to fill. So all you wrote in your book, in the entry for Edward Heath, was one word. Cunt. Did you feel good when you said it? Did you feel hard? Did you feel genuine? Or were you just cack-handedly trying to ape the tone of people who could rant a lot better than you? I mention all this because I've seen some more of your writing recently. I saw that in the Spectator, classy paper, publishes Nazis. Classy. But then you found your niche, didn't you? And that's where your niche is now, at the Spectator. And you wrote, in response to a bunch of soldier boys letting off their weapons in the direction of a picture of the leader of Her Majesty's Democratic Opposition. These things mean something, James, or they should. They should to you. Maybe you've known all along what a farce it is, what a charade it is. But you never told, did you? You had that greasy pole to climb. You said, how is it wrong? How is it wrong, you said, pulling yourself up to your full 4 foot nothing. How is it wrong for the army to train against terrorist-supporting, Jew-hating, Commie revolutionaries? Careful, James. Don't be too nice about them. You're in the Spectator. You've got a niche to fill. Am I being a little tacky? Am I being a little tanky? Who cares? A bunch of hired killers filmed themselves firing bullets into an old man's face on a shooting range. They had a bit of a laugh about it. Of course they did. Hired killers have twisted humour. There's something about killing which... we're not supposed to do it. You know? We're more like bonobos than chimps. We're hardwired for cooperation, not killing. So when you do that, something breaks. When you act against real morality. When you act against respect for life, it twists you. It doesn't surprise me that they have twisted humour. It doesn't even surprise me that people like you would toady up to them. Because I bet you never saw a boot you didn't love to lick. But it's a bit farcical, isn't it? For you to be saying, in 2008, her teeth, cunt. And then to be sitting here proclaiming that it's alright for the army to shoot someone in the face because he's a terrorist supporting Commie revolutionary. Wither the iconoclast, James. Wither the journalist. Wither the rebel. But you were never really that, were you? I told you. No one's coming. You were never really a rebel. You just had a greasy pole to climb. And boots to lick. And secrets to keep. And you kept those secrets like a good little boy. And it rankled you, didn't it? But you kept them. You never spoke out. Left that to others. You had your advancement to think about. Not the kids, forget the kids. You don't really like kids, do you, James? You don't really like young people. Here are some other things you said. Mr. Moral Opprobrium. Ah, yes, James. Here it is. Once you were inveighing against other scourges, not terrorists supporting Commie revolutionaries, not hired killers, putting bullets through the face of an old man to get off. No. You had a different scourge in mind. Aggressive female gangs of embittered, hormonal, drunken teenagers. Gym-slip mums who choose to get pregnant as a career option. Pasty-faced, lard-gutted slappers who will drop their knickers in the blink of an eye. You wrote that. About teenagers. Teenage girls. You don't like them, do you, really? Kids. People, probably. Women, definitely. A conspiracy against chavs? Count me in. That was the title of your column in the Times, 13th of April 2006. You were still pretending to be the iconoclast then, because it was easy for you then with a left government in power, or a nominally left government anyway. Now, of course, you have to try and find other ways of doing it. So when you saw those pictures, those big hunky men in uniform, getting their guns off in the direction of an old man's face, you felt a little bit of that old pizzazz. little bit of that old lead in your pencil. You started to salivate as you thought about another boot that you could lick. Another pair of boots. 4 pairs of boots. 4 pairs of big black leather boots that you could get right down and slobber on. These were men, not women. Not lard-gutted slappers, but hard, virile men. The kind you imagined yourself to be when you wrote the word cunt in your book. Here's the thing, I don't think you thought that Edward Heath was a cunt because of what he did to kids. We've already established you don't really like them. You're barely not one yourself. Of course you wouldn't like them. James has to have all the attention, doesn't he? He has to be patted on the back and told he's written something good by teacher. So no, of course you didn't like kids. What you didn't like Ted Heath for was his pro-Europeanness, his wetness as a Tory, the fact that he wasn't a virile man, a hard man. You couldn't respect a man like that. Not really. It wasn't the crime, it was the weakness. After all, you liked Thatcher. You liked Theresa May, you liked David Cameron, and we all know where he's been. It wasn't the crime, but the weakness in Heath you despised. Men obsessed with strength are always trying to conceal a hidden weakness. Men who worship soldiers are hoping someone else will kill and die instead of them. But I didn't bring you here to lecture you on morality. I came here to read you a poem. Now this is a poem I wrote some time ago. I'm not quite the same person these days as I was when I wrote it, physically and mentally. But when I saw you getting on your high heels about the people who dared to criticize those hard, virile men whose boots you so very much longed to lick, I just had to do this for you. I did think about getting one of my friends to pretend to be you, and we'd dramatize some of the early lines. But I'm kind of going in a different direction with my poetry these days, so I don't want to put too much effort into working on something old. There's probably a joke there that I could make about your wife. But here's the poem, James. I hope you like it. You don't have much of a choice. I'm going to be honest. I see you at the bus stop. I see you in the bar. I hear the sordid shit you jeer, leering from your car. See you laugh in homeless faces, while the hundreds you withdraw you stuff dead-eyed into the garter of a girl that you call whore because you know she has to take it, and pretend she doesn't hear. I watch you, and I dream of how I'd make you disappear. Strike while you stumble homewards on a drunken Friday night, and take you to a little room and tie your hands up tight. Bind chains around your back and metal shackles to your feet. Then, just to make my pretty little picture look complete, cinch a ball gag in behind your head to keep your pie hole shut. Then spread your legs and kick your balls and whisper sweetly, "Cunt." That's what you like to say, no? It's your special little word. Like wench and slag and slapper, growler, fuck pig, bitch and bird. It makes you feel good, doesn't it? Makes that soft thing feel so hard. Well, it's time that you were hoisted by your itty bitty pink petard. I've been looking through your hard drive. I've seen everything you've stored. You heard, of course, that some say virtue is its own reward. Well, vice can be rewarding too when used to the right ends. Your sobs tell me you're very, very keen to make amends. Is that what you want, Nod, from me? Forgiveness for your sins? Well, let me just remove this, and we can begin. First, Sorry, what was that? You say these words offend? Oh, forgive me. For a moment, James, I thought you were a man. 'Cause it's just banter. It's just banter. I never do that, really. It's just joking, love. It's banter. And I mean that most sincerely. It's just banter, darling. Can't you take a joke? It's just banter. That's my humour. Don't be such a snowflake, bloke. Banter, banter. Ooh, so witty banter. Excuse me if I come over all Lisbeth Salander when I hear your banter, banter, banter. Oh, so witty banter. Anti-homo, faux heroic, woman-hating slander. Joke about domestic violence. Chuckle about rape. Put it on a t-shirt, 'cause it's all a jolly jape. Joke about Rohypnol. Be ironic about puffs. Then smirk and roll your beady eyes and mutter weary struth. You can't say anything these days. Political correctness. Next thing you'll be telling me Theresa May is racist. Banter, banter, banter. Oh, so witty banter. I once felt battered by these ever-mounting chants of banter, banter, oh so witty banter. I've never seen a whiter, more entitled pack of wankers. They tell you the life unexamined isn't worth the living. But when you're white and male and cis, the world is so forgiving, so why inspect your conscience? Why try being better men? Your mate who sneered, "Calm down, dear," got voted into number 10. Make your Facebook pit off limits to the ones who won't click like, because if a girl doesn't like banter, baby, she must be a dyke. Banter, 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 oh so witty banter, bantering in numbers that would baffle Georg Cantor. Banter, 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 bloody banter, batting round such bullshit. You make Sutcliffe look like Santa. One day, you might find your jokes aren't funny anymore. You might be beaten down and humbled by the girl that you call whore. Be relieved by force of those ill-gotten hundreds you withdraw. You might just not quite make it from your men's club to the car. One day, the ones you laughed at might just make you disappear and amuse ourselves by shoving razor blades up your urethra. It's just banter. It's just banter. We'd never do that. Really. Trust us. It's just banter. And we mean that most sincerely. Joke about the bullets and the heads of dead MPs. You know, you'll never be brought to account for things like these. You had your greasy pole to climb. You had your niche to fill. You can sit and gibber and let others make your kill. That's all I have to say to you, really, James. I just wanted to let you realise what you are. A bootlicker. A coward. A liar. A cunt, really, I guess. It's alright though. Don't be frightened. It's just banter. Just good old-fashioned British banter. All I wanna do